Hi everyone, today I'll be showing you all of the Wizard101 worlds, ranked from worst to best in my opinion, and I actually made this video a while back, the same exact video, the same idea, but I've actually changed my opinion because I've quested a lot and I've maxed out some characters since then, so, my opinion's really changed. So I hope you enjoy this video, and please let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so first off, we have Spire and number 16. I don't like this world because, I have had 7 characters go through this world, so I am a little bit biased on this world, but I really dislike this world. Mostly because the aesthetic it's not really a bad idea, but since the same area is used over and over again, it really makes me not like this world so much. Just because those streets they use a lot really get on my nerves, and they're not really aesthetically pleasing. I mean, this world does have some redeeming qualities. The story is okay, the music is really good, and the final dungeon is, always the most epic. But the mobs, the weakness spamming, the tower shield spamming, it's not great, and it really makes this world, combined with the streets that are reused over and over, it makes it just not the best world. So that's why it's in last place. I know a lot of people will probably disagree, but that's just what I think. So let's move on to the next one. So next up, in spot 15, we have Marley Bone. This world, I kind of hate putting it so low, but it's really just not the best world, just because it reuses the streets like Spire, which is the most part. It is an interesting world, and, it is a quick world as well, which is good. But it's really just those reused streets just aren't the best thing. The story is good, and the inspiration for the world is good. It's just not the most interesting world, just because of the reused streets. So that's why this world is so low. I don't like doing that, but that's really the only reason it's so low. I know a lot of people really love Marley Bone and will disagree, but I mean, I don't want to put it super high just because it's not my personal favorite. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so next up in spot 14 we have Mushu. And this world is low just because of the same reasons as Marley Bone. The story is not the most interesting, and the areas, they reuse the same streets. That's why it's so low for me. And it actually is a pretty good world. It's just those reusing, the streets that reuse with the bamboo. Not the most interesting. Of course, the music and the difficulty are pretty good. It's not a difficult world. It's not really an easy world. And the length is pretty good as well. It's pretty easy to speed run through, so this world's not terrible. It's just not the most interesting. That's why it's so low. So let's move on. Okay, so in spot 13 we have Chrysalis, and I hate putting this world so low, but it's really a difficult world. For me, it's so long, and it's really at the point where it drags. It's that long, and it's not an easy world as well. Usually, this world's going to take up to a month if you're questing by yourself, and it's not easy at all. It really is hard to quest through just because it's not an easy world, and it's really long. And that's why it was in two parts. Like, part 1 was long enough, and then part 2 is also really long, so it's not a fast world. But this world does have good music, and it's a pretty world as well, so that's why it's not super low in this list. Okay, so next up in spot 12 we have Celestia. And this world is really annoying for me because I had to do it so many times on, 7 characters. The story is not the most interesting, and honestly, the underwater areas don't appeal to me. It's not an ugly world at all, and the areas are actually quite good, especially for the floating lands. I do like that part of this world, but the underwater places and the big submarine theme kind of isn't the best, in my opinion. And it's not really difficult. That's one good thing about it. It's pretty easy world for the most part. So it's not an awful world, but it's not my favorite. Alright, next up in spot 11 we have Azteca. And this world is not, I think a lot of people don't like this world. It has the same reasons as Chrysalis, just because it's really a long world. And it's pretty difficult as well. It's not a quick world at all. And the mob health really peaks right here. It goes from being reasonable in Avalon to being 30,000, and it's really, the difficulty is insane. But it is a really nice looking world, which is why I'm not putting it much lower. I really love the way it looks, honestly, especially before, all this. I'm not going to spoil it too much, but before all of that happened, it was a really beautiful world. And the music as well is really nice. And the story is not too bad also. So it's not an awful world, but it's just really tough because of the difficulty and the length. Alright, next up, we're in the top 10 now. This is his top 10 spot at Wisteria. This world, I don't really have much to say about it. It's not a bad world at all. It's just a really short world, and it's also a fun world. I like to do it on my characters. I know a lot of people skip it, but I like to do it usually because it takes maybe one day. And it's a pretty world as well. It is difficult, because there are a lot of defeat and collects, which take a long time. But it's not a bad world at all, and there's no reason to put it much lower in this list. But it's also not a super fun world or anything. It's not super epic or anything. It's just, a quick little, it was a quick little world. So it's not the best one, but it's also not the worst. Okay, at number 9 we have Zephyria, and I think I'm gonna get a lot of hate for putting it not in the last place, because it's not the best world at all, and a lot of people don't like it. Personally, I don't mind it as much as a lot of people do. I understand why it's hated. It is quite tedious to go through this world, so the mobs are really awful, and it's quite a slow world as well, so it's not the funnest. But for me, the aesthetic of it is really redeeming, and I really enjoy this world just because of that. And it's not super, super long either. It's just really a lot of work. It's really tedious, like I said. And it's not super difficult either. But honestly, in my opinion, it's not the worst. But it's also not my favorite. Just because all around it's not the best world. So it's not terrible, but it's not the best, like I said. Alright, next up at number 8 we have Crocotopia. And I don't really think this world should be this low. I just didn't want to put it super high just because there are better worlds. But personally, I like this world. I like the theme of it. I like the music, and it's really nostalgic as well. But the reused areas, like DragonSpire, or Marley Bone, it's kind of annoying, even though the colors are different. Like, I do like the elemental theme where each one, it's fire, ice, storm. And the story is not too bad, but I don't like finding out that we came here for no reason, essentially. So, it's not the worst world, but it is a nostalgic world, and it's not an ugly world at all. So that's why I didn't want to put it, too low or too high. It's just a good world all around. Okay, next up at number 7 we have Wizard City. And this world is kind of the same thing as Crocotopia. It's not a bad world at all. It's just not the most epic at all. It's really a simple world because it's the first world, you play in, so of course it's simple. And also the streets being reused is kind of annoying, even though they all look very different, so that's one good thing about it. And it's also a very nostalgic world, and the music and everything is just great, so it's not a bad world at all. It's just not the most epic or anything, so that's why it's not super high in this list. Alright, next we have Caramel at number 6. And this world, I don't know if it was really well received or not. I never really cut into that because I just didn't really think about it that much. It was a pretty easy world, but it felt a lot different than the other worlds for some reason. I think it was just how it's a new arc, and it's very simple compared to the, Imperia and Mirage, which were really, big worlds with a lot of epic things happening. But this world does have a good aesthetic, and the story is, it's just fun, like Wisteria, and the music is good, and I like the inspiration for it. But, the final battle, if you've done it, it's not the most epic or anything, but this world is just good all around, and I like gobblers too, so it's not, it's not a bad world at all. Okay, we're in the top 5 now. At 5th place is Polaris, and this world is just good because it's not super difficult, and it's not super long either, and it's good, especially if you're trying to max out a character fast. The music is pretty good, and the aesthetic is it's a really pretty world, I think, and the story is pretty good as well. It's just a shorter world, and except up to the final battle, it's pretty easy. So it's just a well-rounded world. I think it deserves, top 5. It's not really terrible, but it's a good world. Alright, next up at spot 4 we have Imperia. And I think this is a pretty good world. It's really very balanced and it was enjoyable. Both parts were enjoyable. Even though it's quite long, it always is epic most of the time, and all the areas look very different, so it's a good world. The difficulty is reasonable. I mean, the final battle is very difficult, but at the same time, I think that's okay for this world. The story is good, of course, and like I said, it's a good looking world. It's not the same area over and over. It's very different. And it's an epic world as well. So it's a really good world, and I think it deserves, number 4. Alright, number 3 we have Mirage. Mirage is one of my favorite worlds, and I just love the theme, I love the music, and it's a really beautiful world as well. I think the difficulty is really good. It is kind of difficult, but it's not super difficult. And if you have the right gear, it's not too bad. So I do like this world a lot. And the only thing I don't like is how the story drags just a bit, especially early on, but it really makes up for that later on. And I think it's just a good world because there's not much bad about it, besides what I just said, that it drags a little bit. But it's really a good world, I think. And not only that, but it's fun to quest through and it gets pretty epic. So I think it's a good world. Alright, number 2 we have Avalon. And I put Avalon so high because it's just, to me, it's the perfect world. And I know a lot of people will disagree because it is not the most favorite world. I think it's really hated, actually. I don't think a lot of people like it. I don't know if that's just me and that's what I've seen, but I think it's just because it's long and it is quite difficult, but to me it's not too difficult, especially, after Zephyria, it's not that bad. But to me it's just such a beautiful world because of the aesthetic. It's just fantastic, and I love the medieval theme. And the music is good, the story is good as well, and the final dungeon is just really good. And it's also an epic world just because every area looks different, and it's really just a great world. So I don't know if anyone's going to agree with that, but I think it's a really good world, and I think it deserves the top 2. Okay, finally at number 1 we have Grizzlheim. I don't think anyone's going to agree with me on this one, because it is my opinion, it's my favorite world of all the worlds. To me, it's just so much fun. I've actually quested through it 7 times. It's all 7 of my characters, and it was fun every single time. And it's just a great world to me, even though the mobs can be a little annoying, and there's the lack of experience points in part 1, and the difficulty for Winter Tusk. But I just love the theme of it, with the Vikings, and the music is good, and it's a really beautiful world, and every area looks, really different, especially in Winter Tusk. And I think the story is fantastic, and the final dungeon is so epic, and especially leading up to that, it's really epic. But to me, this is just the perfect world, and I know people skip it or rush through it, but I think it's, fun, and I like to slow down and enjoy it. It's a really good world. I don't know if anyone's going to agree with that, but I hope maybe you can see my perspective on that, just because it's a pretty balanced world, and I think it's really fun. Okay, those were my opinions on all of the worlds. I hope you can see my perspective on everything, because I feel like a lot of people will not agree, especially with the top ones and the ones that were at the very bottom. I'd like to see what you guys think, so if you have any different opinions, please let me know down in the comments, because I'd love to hear, what you think. And I'd like to see what other people think, about these worlds, and let me know, maybe why you didn't think a certain world should be at a certain point. Don't just say, oh, why'd you put Marley Bone so low? Like, tell me why you think Marley Bone should be higher, And just let me know, what your ranking would be. 'Cause that was really interesting to me, because my other video on this got a lot of views. It had several thousand somehow, and people would, leave their reviews on what the ranking should be for them. And it was really interesting to see what people thought about that. So please let me know, what you think as well. And consider giving this video a like, if you enjoyed it. And consider subscribing, because I'm planning on making more videos like this in the future. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you want to tell me what you think as well, or if you agreed with me. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!